What if I were to suggest that you play a key role in the awakening world? And that you are watching this because you have heard the call. We can start right now by opening our hearts and minds. Welcome to the awakening world.
Hey, good evening, everybody. I am Love Coach Scott Katamas, and welcome to the Wednesday night edition of The Awakening World. And we are going to be talking all about relationships, our ancestors, and family constellations. And we're going to learn wonderful tools how to work with those dynamics. My old friend Ram Dass, who, when I was younger, he was like my idol, and I got to get to know him. He's a beautiful, beautiful man. We miss him. And Ram Dass used to always say, do you think you're enlightened? Spend some time with your family. and that's true. And so we're going to learn a little bit more today about how to spend time with our family. And we've got two wonderful guests who you're going to meet and learn from. Iara Lane coming back once again to the Awakening World. And Carolyn Hauser is with us. And they are both experts in relationship and family constellations. But wait, it's Wednesday night, which means it's Trish Wright night. Wednesdays are Trish nights. And as always, my beloved brother co-pilot Omashar is with us as well. Now, I want to thank all of you that are in our Zoom room watching. And this is going to be a very interactive show. We want to hear your questions. So it's a good idea to come into the Zoom room. Now, a lot of you, in fact, most of you are watching on Facebook right now, and that's great. Thank you to John and Summer Raymer, who get us out to over 100 Facebook groups and pages. That's awesome. But you're going to want to come into the Zoom room. You're going to want to join us. That goes for you watching on YouTube, those watching on Humanity's Team, whatever broadcast platform. Come into the Zoom room. Come join the Global Peace Tribe. It's easy to do that. Just go to globalpeacetribe.com, globalpeacetribe.com. You'll see our website. You can learn all about our different shows, and then click where it says register for the new season. And when you do that, it's going to take you to our website, our registration page. We do 3 or 4 shows every week, and they're all amazing with beautiful hosts and co-hosts and musical artists and guests with all sorts of interesting topics. For example, last week, we had a show all about authentic spirituality, can it mix with politics? We had a show on Saturday night all about the Holo movement, and another show on Sunday that was beautiful, all about tools for redignifying love and creating ascension. So come and join the Global Peace Tribe. And then you get the links to all of our Zoom rooms for the next 2 months. And you can come on in and interact. And if you register right now, you'll get the link for tonight's show. So you can come on in, you can connect directly with all of our great presenters. And this is where we also put a lot of links and discounts into the chat box. Plus, it's really cool to be part of the Global Peace Tribe because we're really cool people. We're fun. So come and join us. All right. I'm going to bring my co-host Trish on for a second, and then I'm going to go to Omashar for music. Trish, what's your experience with family constellation work?
Oh. So, many years ago, I had a partner who was really into it. And he had done some family constellations with this woman who also prescribed him with wolf's milk. And it was a really his experience was so profound that when I was hitting this 3-year PTSD trigger and just not finding any way out, I was doing Gestalt work, which is moving a lot of things, but there was just still something that I needed help with. And I started to attend these weekly gatherings, these family constellation gatherings. And it was one of the most profound, wild experiences of seeing the field and understanding how the field works that I'd ever experienced. And it really helped me understand the layers. That was my first introduction to the layers of ancestral trauma and how we carry that through our lives. It also really helped shift a lot of dynamics between my mother and I, healing the lineages. And he just so happens to have been the person that offered the belfry of the church to me. Yes.
Oh, I've seen, yeah,
y'all.
I've seen it. I've seen that spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Y'all didn't know I was the bat in the belfry for almost a year.
Well, we're going to learn a lot more, and it's going to be a relationship show. I see the great Paul Sterling's in the audience, so maybe we'll even bring Paul up and have him share some of his wisdom. But let's go straight to the music. I see that Eleanor Joy and her beloved are in the house, so we'll have some dancing, we'll have some music, and a reminder to everybody, get up and move and groove to what Omashar has to offer. Hey, brother.
Hey there, namaste and aloha, everybody. And this is definitely not a song about bats in a belfry. However, I wouldn't mind more of that story there, Trish. This is a short, sweet, metaphysical pop song about our ancestors. We've all heard it before, so we can mouth along. And it's called Out of the Blue. And so, Eleanor, dearly beloved, stand up, get ready. And we're thinking of your friend. I read what you put in the chat there.
I love how Ian's ready to dive in.
Here we go.
Whatever happened to the ones that came before? Did they just vanish into the blue? Maybe they're living the dream we know to be true, and reaching their hands back out of the blue. My heart is so ready to embrace all that's new. I feel the love calling for me to break on through. With peace on my mind, I know that I'm coming to the new way of life that feels so true. Come on, Bunny, get it down. There's nothing here to hold me back from you. The clouds of my life have blown away. My lightness of being lifts me every day. I find myself feeling not so blue. My heart is so ready to embrace all that's new. I feel the love calling for me to break on through. With peace on my mind, I know that I'm coming to a new way of life that feels so true.
Well, that was a fun one.
It was a fun one. It is a fun one. I'm going to stop this thing and sending me psychedelic. I was debating, do I have that background? I have this other one that has flashing lights, but I would need permission from people who have epilepsy in the audience, right? To perhaps.
Right. Now, have you done family constellation work before?
No, I have not, but I have had a men's group when I was in Kauai that I joined that was definitely about family constellations, but it was more about coming into the heart so we can go back into the family with a heart open space and be receptive to our partners and loved ones and family. So that's pretty much my experience with it. So I'm looking forward to being educated tonight.
Well, to start the education process, let's bring up our first guest, and it is Iara Line. Iara Line.
Ah, yay. How are you doing, Scott? Hey,
I grew
everyone.
up with Superman, and one of the characters was Laura Lane, right?
Oh,
Yeah, Laura Lane is one of the key characters in the Superman story. So when I see Laura Lane, I always think of Laura Lane. It's, you've got a Superman thing. Anyway,
thank you
welcome.
for sharing that.
Yeah.
Next time I'll bring my cape. Thank you for sharing that.
You have a superpower. And so Iara is a certified family constellation facilitator and a life coach, a wonderful speaker. I always love what she has to say. For the past decade, she's been part of the conscious growth movement. Now, Iara is dedicated to assisting clients to have breakthroughs in their lives. And she's also the founder of the Ancient Knowledge for the Modern Woman movement, originally from Brazil. Then she went through Maui, and now she lives in Sedona. The good pleasure to meet her and her beloved. Her beloved's going to be on our show on Saturday night. So your family is well represented on the Awakening World this week.
It's true. Thank you, Scott. So nice to be here. Hi, everyone. So nice to see some new faces, some already seen before in the past shows. Welcome.
So get us off to a start. What is family constellation work?
First, I'll say it, and Carolyn notes that is not so easily to explain if you don't experience, but I'll do my best to explain just in a few minutes. It is considered a type of therapy for some, but some therapists don't like that we call family constellation therapy. But basically, family constellation works with a morphogenetic field, and I'll explain a little bit about that. So family constellation understands that the well-being of one person in your family affects the other family members. So let's say that you had somebody that had a traumatic experience on the past. You have some grandparents. For instance, Carolyn is from Germany, and this happens a lot over there. People went through war, right? 2 big wars. So let's say that Carolyn great-grandfather had a traumatic experience, and that traumatic experience got unresolved. So he didn't process that. And it's proven now that through science, through epigenetic, that trauma can pass through the future generations. And sometimes you have a person, you may have the great-granddaughter, the great-grandson, having some issues in their personal lives, emotional, physical issues. And that person already tried everything to fix that issue, everything that can be imagined, have been doing therapy for 20 years and nothing get resolved. It's because most likely that issue is on the family lineage of that person. And family constellation therapy or family constellation session can help the person to identify that issue that usually is hidden. And the client, by seeing what it is, it facilitates the healing to happen on that person, whatever that person is suffering, if it's a spiritual suffering on the physical level and on mental level. So let me know if I was clear on this explanation, because it's not so easy to explain, but it's something that is like, I'll say that family constellation is our fast track for ascension, is our fast track to create the life that we really love, right? Because imagine like this, we have a lot of people is planting right now, right? Because it's spring. So we have a planter, beautiful planter, but that planter is an old planter, and it's full of trash because haven't been used for so long. And you're finally like ready to, you're like, I am so excited. I'll be planting some new flowers and I'll be planting some vegetables. But what do you need to do with that planter in order to plant these new vegetables and these new flowers? And the planter is full of trash. So what do you need to do first? Anybody tell what you need to do first? Empty, right? You got to remove the trash. You got to empty the planter, remove the trash, and prepare the soil. Then you can put the new seeds, right, for the flowers and for the vegetables. And I said the family constellation helps you to do that. Is to clear those things that is no longer serving you, that you have been carrying with you and does not belong to you, will help you to clean that space. And by cleaning that space, then you can go ahead and create the life that you love, the relationship that you love. You can be yourself. Because sometimes we're not even ourselves because we have been carrying so many things from our ancestors. And thank God we carry good things also, okay, people? We don't carry just the bad things from our ancestors. We carry the good things, right? We carry their strength and their courage. So let's bring in those good things as well. But the bad things, the traumas, we really want to carry those with us for the rest of our lives, or we want to be the ones to be the change, to bring that change to you and to your whole system. I want to be the one. I hope you want to be the one as well, Scott, and you watching.
You know, I love what you say. And I've said this before, but it's important for us to remember that our ancestors just went through the most extraordinary things to give us the life that we have today. They fought in the wars, they traveled across the oceans, they crossed the plains, they worked 3 jobs, and most of them had really hard, unpleasant lives. But they had one dream, and the dream was a better life for their offspring. And look at the abundance and the freedom that we now have. We are so blessed where we live. You know, most of us are in North America, and we're incredibly blessed. Now, it's also true that our ancestors didn't have time to deal with their alcoholism or their low self-esteem or the domestic violence or whatever, you know, ancestral patterning and wounding that they carried. They were too busy, you know, doing those 3 jobs or fighting in the wars or crossing, you know, the continent. So with the freedom and the abundance that they've blessed us with, I believe it's up to us now then to heal, to work on our epigenetics, to work on healing our ancestral history. And so that's why I really wanted to do this show. And I'm going to bring now what's interesting is both Carolyn and Iara live in Sedona. They're both brilliant coaches, but actually they're meeting for the first time on our show tonight. So Carolyn, I'd love to kind of turn it over to you for a few minutes to just add maybe a little bit more about your understanding and work with family constellation work, and maybe describing what a session might look like when somebody comes and works with you.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm glad you didn't ask me first, and thanks, Iara, for going first, because it is really hard to explain what it is. And generally, when people ask me, I just tell them my story, how I came to constellations, because it illustrates the power that this work can have. So I was severely anorexic and bulimic for 10 years. From the time I was 10 till I was 20, And my parents really tried, they were really wanting me to heal. I wanted to heal. We tried regular therapy. They tried mystics. They tried shamans. They tried Buddhist monks. They tried Indian saints. They tried art therapy. They tried dance therapy. Like they put me into anything that was available, and nothing helped. Until my early 20s, my mom found Family Constellations. And at that time, we were not talking and we were estranged. But all I wanted at that point was just have a normal life, be able to have kids and get married. And at that point, when you have any kind of addiction for over 10 years, or my prognosis at that time was a 5% chance of recovery. And it wasn't quite sure that I would live to be 30. So not that great. So I really wanted to get better, and I was desperate, and I went to this weekend seminar, and it was very weird because I was probably the youngest, and there were a bunch of people, maybe 16 of them. None of them had met each other. They were all there for different reasons. And like Laura said, it's mostly people that have tried everything that finally break down and say, okay, I'll try it, or some people find it maybe a little sooner, but in that circle were a lot of people that were like, I've tried everything else and I don't know what else. There were people that were getting divorced, people that were facing cancer, and then it was me. And it was a 3-day weekend workshop. Now, the reason why this is called Constellations has nothing to do with the stars in the skies. Originally, this word comes from Austria and Germany, and it's just a really bad translation, in my opinion. But the reason why it's called constellating is because you take your inner picture of something, and I'll explain this more, and you place it in the room. So you spatially place it, you spatially constellate your inner picture, basically. It's a way of making your subconscious and the group consciousness or the group subconscious visible. So in my case, Saturday went by, half of Sunday went by, and I knew that if I wanted to have a change, I had to finally, raise my hand and say, okay, I'll do it. And when I did what they asked me to do, and this is how it's traditionally done, is they asked me to pick people from the audience. Nobody knew anything about me other than I was struggling with these eating disorders. And so they asked me to go around the circle and asked for people if they would be willing to represent for myself, for my siblings, and my family. So we did a family of origin, which is a kind of like a traditional way of doing it. And a person for the eating disorder. And then they asked me to just ask these people, asked if the people were willing. If they were willing, they could also say no or yes. When they were willing, I kind of asked them to get up and put them in front of me, placed my hands behind them, and intuitively walked across the room or around the room with them and placed them in different positions. That's why it's called constellating. And to make a long story short, what came out in my constellation was actually that the eating disorder, the thing that I was fighting and the thing that I thought was killing me, was the thing that had kept me alive all the time. If I hadn't had that eating disorder, I was struggling with depression, all kinds of things, I would have probably killed myself. So it totally shifted the dynamic, and it was a profound experience. And I went home afterwards, didn't think about it too much, just let it be, which we were advised to do. We were advised to not analyze it too much. And within 3 months, I was completely healed. And the funny thing is, I didn't even put 2 and 2 together. I met a friend 3 months later, and he was just asking how I was doing. And I'm like, I'm fine, I'm healed. I healed myself. And he's like, how? I've known you for 5 years. We've been struggling with this thing for 5 years. How in the world did you heal yourself? And so I stopped to think and realized, oh, like 3 months back, I had this one session. And ever since then, I was able to step by step, every day, get a little better and get a little better. So I hope that gives you kind of a little bit of an idea how this is done, and the power of it. Today, I don't work in groups anymore. I don't know, Iara, how you work, but I do individual sessions, and I use these colored fields, and I have people pick different colors for different things, and then I step into them. And one thing that I've learned from this work is that we all, like each and every one of us, we carry such a tremendous history and story with us, and we are all more similar than we think. And we're never just, it's never just ourselves. So oftentimes when we're stuck in life, it has nothing to do with the current situation, but everything with where we came from and where we came from. I guess that's what I have to say for now.
Thank you for that, Carolyn. You know, it really is difficult to sort of describe the magic, the profound transformation that constellations is, you know, and it takes a lot of trust in people, in your practitioner, to let them lead you, right? So I think that you've done a fabulous job describing an undescribable moment. More volume. Sure, I can do that. And just to, is this better? Yeah. Okay, great. And just to say that to hold such amazing space takes a lot of ability to move with what is. And I had the like wonderful pleasure of being able to sit in a session with Iara at the Global Peace Tribe Retreat. And epic. Do that, call her. And I'm sure that Carolyn's really amazing too. Like, look at her cute dog in the back. But I was gonna say, in general, what have you had any sessions that really profoundly changed your life? Like, just by being, not personal sessions, but in your client sessions, like how have you had experiences witnessing or being in people's work? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Trish, you ask Carolyn or myself? Okay. Well, like, okay, by witness somebody else in a constellation, if I had some healing happen with me, by witness somebody or by guiding somebody's constellations? Is that your question, right? Not by leading the constellation, because I seen like, I can use like miraculous, because I saw some miraculous things happening, like when I guided a constellation, what happened with the client afterwards. But I experienced some healing myself being in a constellation as well, because even if you're in a session, a group session, and like Carolyn, nowadays I do the one-on-one more than the group sessions, but I still do the group sessions. But in the group session, when you're representing somebody else, family, right? And you have something similar that may happen in your family, you can experience healing. I didn't experience like anything extraordinary, like when I was representing somebody's family, but I definitely felt some healing. I was like, wow, something very similar happened in my family and really touched my heart and make me like think about some of my family members and start treating them differently. Like, for instance, in Family Constellation, we sell that everybody has the right to belong. And this specific family constellation was somebody that was excluded from the family system. And because somebody excluded this schizophrenic guy from the family system, like the descendant, and I don't remember if it was the nephew, I think, took place of this schizophrenic person that was excluded and started having all types of emotional issues. And I have a similar case in my family. So it really touched me at that time. I was like, wow, I have a very similar case in my family, and I see that people is excluding this person in my family, that it is schizophrenic as well. And it started wondering like, what are the issues that is causing? And I went to my grandparents and my aunt and talked with them about that. You know, what about giving more attention to, I'm not going to mention name, but to this person, to really start seeing this person, you know, and not like hide this person on the back seat because this person has schizophrenia. So yes, just from participating in a family constellation, even if you're not the client, the working client, healing can happen with you. And please, in your case, if you have some case of somebody that committed suicide in your family, or somebody that has is schizophrenic, or somebody that you believe that was excluded from your family system, I really ask you, like deep in my heart, like from my experience from being a family constellation facilitator, don't do this with them, because this will it can cause like a huge issue in your whole family system. Find a way to see this person, to look at this person, to accept this person in your heart, and to not exclude that person from your family system. That's like so important. I can it's hard for me to describe how important. Carolyn knows that, how important it is, and the problems, the issues that can come from that, excluding somebody from your family system.
Thank you, Iara. And Carolyn, I put the spotlight on you. You can add, to Trish's question. And there also is another question that I just want to put out, which is from Susan, who asks, if there are so many ancestors, can you ever get it all? So there's a question to also tackle, Carolyn.
Yes, I do think that you can get it all, because you're not connected in terms of your fate with all of them. Like, you're not the catalyst for all of them. I think there's systemic, we call it systemic patterns that run through a lineage. And, a lot of the ancestors will have had the same pattern, like working hard, or, not allowing themselves to be loved, or whatever it is, so it's usually a whole chain reaction when you work on it. So that's in terms of like, it's not so much, sometimes it's really connected to individual destinies that you're connected to, but oftentimes it's whole strings basically that you kind of, or whole chain links that you unlock with the constellations. What I love so much about the constellation, or where it's helped me grow so much in life, is I do couples work. And I have probably, so when we say step into, what I didn't share during my story is that people get to represent for your, so in my constellation, people got to represent for my mother, my father, my siblings, and so forth. And these are people that don't know anything about you. A skilled facilitator will know how to ask the right questions so that these people become conduits. So what we know from the constellation work is that there's a knowing field that we all are connected to, and that's what we use. So now when we step in ourselves, when, Laura Lane does it with the little figurines, I do it with the fields. I literally step into somebody's energy and I become them. And it's because I've done this now for over 20 years. I've stepped into women, children, infants that are pre-verbal, men, right? And the part that I love the most is when I do couples work, I feel I have an advantage over other women because I have stepped probably into the shoes of 1,000 men and know exactly how they feel and how firsthand I get to experience how misunderstand, and women too. But for me specifically, I feel what's helped me the most is really understanding men, because to get to really step into their fields and feel how they feel, and also see how often we as women totally misunderstand them and not see them. That was the huge eye opener for me, and the biggest blessing, I would say.
Yeah. Trish?
Yeah, and the thing that's so beautiful is really everybody in the constellation gets the work. I think that's part of its amazing magic. Yeah, amazing. Let's see, what questions are there in the world? I'll read a couple comments. I like the healing. Grace says, I like the healing that comes from understanding how everything has a deep and understandable reason that deserves our infinite compassion and love. Another question is, how quickly can we get results? And George says, it's generational. Your parents have learned from their parents and on back in time. There's a knowing in the field we are connected to, says Grace.
I saw a question from Grace. She said, how can we apply all of this healing for ourselves and have it be available also for the 90% as well, even here in North America, those who are still dealing with holding those 3 jobs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
I believe it starts with you. It starts with you. It starts with one person. answer to her question. Because once you, as Carolyn told as well, once you work with you, there is a ripple effect that will go through your family lineage, because we're all connected through this morphogenetic field, this field that knows it all. Some we even call, outside of family constellations, some will call this the Akashic field as well. So you work in yourself for whatever reason that you need. And when you work in yourself, you affect your family lineage. But not the families, we have the family system, but we have other systems as well. So when you work in your family lineage, this may affect other systems. You start affecting maybe your community, and smaller communities and bigger communities. So it can be like a ripple effect, because when one person gets healed, a lot of others will get healed to the future and to the past. And that healed person can change the world. One healed person, I believe, can change the world. Remember that little music, that little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. You know, there's the little light doll, and all the other ones start getting light. It's like that. It starts with us. That's all I have to say.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Wow. Carolyn, what are your thoughts?
So in my life, what's been most useful is understanding actually vibrational levels. And that's the work of Dr. David R. Hawkins, who also used to be in Sedona. He's no longer living. But he basically taught us, and I'm sure there have been people on the show that have talked about this, that there's vibrational levels, high vibrational, low vibrational levels. When we're in a low vibrational state of being, generally we get sick, we struggle, our life is not flowing so well. He actually gave us a scale of consciousness, map of consciousness, where he shares with us that the vibrational level of 200 is the line of courage. Everything below courage goes towards death and decay. Everything above courage goes towards more life and more abundance. 500 is the level of love and bliss, and when we can live there, life is magical. So what he's also shared in his book and his research is that I think he says 98% of the world population lives below the level of 200, but the other 2% calibrates or counteracts that those 98%. So in terms of what you were saying, Laura, you know, he basically has the scientific proof that if one of us works on getting ourselves into a higher vibrational state, so I think he has the number of one person at 500 carries or helps balance either 750,000 or 1 million people and help lift them up as well. So the vibrational levels, they are exponential. And in my own life, the more I focus on learning and finding ways to help myself to get to those higher levels, the more effective I was being at living my purpose, and the better my life also got. So the focus is really on learning about energy and learning methodologies like family constellations. Family constellations is, in my opinion, hands down one of the fastest way to elevate ourselves. Kind of what Iara also shared. That's what came to my mind when you were just asking that question.
You know, as a coach, and it's kind of fun, you know, because I don't do family constellation work, but it's fascinating to me. And of course, Trish and I are both coaches. And one of the things that, of course, we all see as coaches is how symbiotic families are. And so what you talk about, how, you know, one person raising the vibration has an impact on the whole family. One of the things I've also noticed is the challenge of when one person raises the vibration, it also threatens other members of the family. Oftentimes the older, more kind of stuck in their ways members of the family. So how do you kind of get around that when, you know, you've got somebody who's doing great family constellation work, but other members of the family are threatened by this rising of consciousness? And that's a question for you too, Trish. That's why I brought you in.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, you know, since when you do family constellation work, it's on the subconscious. So when I do a constellation, or if you do a constellation on your family members, they don't necessarily consciously know that you're doing it. You know, it's not like you know, they don't need to know. They don't need to know anything about anything that you're doing it. And so in my experience, yes, there might be some turbulences, but overall, and this would be interesting to track over time, you know, how these families that were one or a few people have done constellations, if they raised up, if their lives got overall better. My feeling is that, and actually Hellinger, who's kind of the man that discovered or brought this work to us, he always said that, yes, the truth in the moment might startle us or be painful or whatnot, but it ultimately sets us free. So while there might be a little bit of a ripple or something, I do think that generally, overall, it helps to make everything better for everybody.
Beautiful. Trish or Iara, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of thoughts that I have about that. Thoughts on patience and thoughts on compassion, thoughts on allowing and accepting people for who they are. You know, having experienced this myself, you know, in my life, is like doing the work, getting things that I want to happen in my life to have the shifts, and having resistant people in my life, well, resistant or like they're just happy with whatever is their experience in this lifetime. And what I had to come to personally was my discomfort with their unwillingness. What I saw as unwillingness to do the work was a judgment. Was the judgment of something that I wanted for them, or I wanted them to do to prove their love to me, or something to make my life easier. And it was a really selfish approach. So in the sense of, you know, as I'm evolving and growing in the ways that I want to, that it's my responsibility to put myself in positions and with people who love and accept and respect me for who I am, and to manage my proximity to other people, you know, to the people who are like, think that I'm kind of a POS, or that I am, you know, like why would I hang out with someone who thinks that I'm a terrible person? You know, why would I put myself in a position to cause someone triggers and traumas constantly just by being who I am? So that's the thought there. Now, does it change the love? Oh, I can't say those words. Can I say those words? What is the POS? A piece of
Poop. Piece of poop. A pop. A piece of poop.
Yeah. Well, that would have been a pop, yeah. But that's what that's how I work it out. And then it doesn't change anything about how I love them or how I want to be in connection with them. So as they're doing their work, whatever their work might be, I can't tell them what to do, nor do I actually really know what they need unless they're telling me specifically, right? Like, I want to go here, and I'm like, oh, good, I can help you find the strategies that are going to work for you. And then, but that's also not my responsibility, right? And that's not my job, nor if it's especially non-consensual coaching, like, we don't do that. So that's what I love more, accept more.
Beautiful. Omashar, be ready. I'm going to go to you for a moment for your question, but I want to read a couple comments that have come in. Dorina writes, and Dorina, I always appreciate Dorina. She's down in Ecuador. She writes, I experienced the healing effects of family constellation therapy a decade ago, and I'm pleasantly surprised that it's becoming more mainstream nowadays. I want to recommend a really good 8-part movie series called Another Self, a Turkish drama series. You can find it on Netflix, that is centered around a man who does life-changing family constellation sessions, where the 3 main characters embark on a spiritual quest and finding themselves and working through past trauma via family constellational work. So thank you for that. Reverend Jeffrey reminds us of the beautiful Ho'oponopono prayer. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. Eleanor Joy writes, judgment and expectation are like a noose around our neck. And George Noble is celebrating the question, It says, I have a friend who only wants to love everyone and stay present. Doesn't have a clue that her ways of being with men resemble those of her mother. No insight into this possibility, what it could mean. I'll mention family constellation systems to her. Absolutely. All right, Omashar, you had a wonderful question in the chat box. I'm just going to go to you to ask it to our two experts here.
Yes, I will. And just a precursor to that, without the curse being in the cursor, is as I have up-leveled myself over the years, the only way I've been able to protect myself and my family units and my friends' units is by just shutting up and not sharing anything with anybody else, because it's only in this forum that I can speak openly and freely about consciousness and my heart and my connection to the Divine Mother and everything, because everyone else just thinks I'm a complete nut. And so over the years, I've stopped sharing it. It's kind of like my pearls, but I'm finding myself more and more isolated, which is interesting. And so that's just that. That's just an aside. And I'm not too sure if the question that I have has any bearing on this topic tonight or any relevance or any value. However, but I'm going to say it anyway. And if we all concur that we all have many, many, many lives, right? We've lived hundreds of times, different bodies, then does that not mean that we are our own ancestors? I am an ancestor that lived in a different form 100 years ago. So I'm just kind of bringing that into the topic, because we all look at healing our ancestral, poor ancestors. They suffered so much. I am my ancestor. I was the one that suffered so much. Not poor me anymore, because holy smoke, look what we are creating together as we rise. So I'm just kind of throwing it in here. I'm not too sure if it's going to go anywhere. Maybe Carolyn and Iara, do you have any feeling of that within the sessions, that not only are we healing our ancestral line, we're healing the ancestors that we actually are, as the dude that was with the Mormons that came across the desert, and or whomever, the Dust Bowl and blah, 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 the Tea Party, it's all me, it's my fault, and it's a joke. Anyway, that's enough, I think, maybe. Does it make any sense?
Yes, it does, Omashar. It's interesting because you touched the subject of past lives as well, and you being the ancestors and the reincarnation. I think you were touching a little bit of the subject of past lives, and the traditional Hellinger family constellation, as I learned, we don't really work during the family constellation with like past lives. But I understand your concept is like, so when you're healing yourself, even though you had like past lives, so you are on the ancestors, right? And you are on the ancestors of somebody else because you had past lives, if you believe in reincarnation, who is watching over here. So I believe like when you have the past lives, you're carrying those characteristics, you're carrying those things within you as well. So I believe when you're healing yourself, Omashar, over here in the year of 2023, you'll be hitting these other parts as well. Even though, as far as my studies, Carolyn, you can tell about your experience, I never really worked with like the past lives things during a family constellation, because just in our current life, we already have like so many things going on. It's so many things. And I know there are other techniques that can work with the past lives. But for sure, Omashar, like when you're working on Omashar in the year of 2023 in yourself, there are parts of yourselves like from past lives that will be healed as well, because it's all within you. And it's something that work with the body and soul. So it's all getting healed.
Yeah, it's a funny one. In that I've seen so many people saying, just honor our ancestors. Look at the struggle they went through. Poor them. And it's kind of like we're putting this is my perspective only, putting all our energy back there when it's taking us really out of the present. And if I am my ancestor, it's poor me. It's not poor them. I'm just kind of doing in my life, doing everything to pull myself into the now and not give myself to the past or the future. Maybe a little bit, but not much. And so maybe there's going to be an up-leveling of even family constellation practices when more people realize that we've all, there's maybe let's say there's 10 billion souls that can continually reconstitute themselves through this earth plane. So I'm going to shut up there because this is a deep hole. So
Well, all I can say is whatever you need will come out in the constellation. And yes, in classical constellations, we don't go into past lives and so forth, but living in Sedona, I've opened myself,
right.
I've opened myself up to just do it my way in a sense. And I've had constellations where past lives come in. I've had constellations where aliens come in. I've had constellations where whole nations come in. I've had constellations where previous lifetimes of selves come in. So, you know, what I know really for sure know is that whatever you need, the field will provide for you to get to the next iteration of you, the next level of freedom.
Nice, thanks.
Trish, what thoughts, comments, questions come up for you?
I'm a little blinking. Yeah. I mean, I love what you're sharing, Omashar, because we are our ancestors. It's true. And I think that that's part of the things why we do our work, right? Is that we get to not only change the way that we walk in the world, which means that we change the way that we engage with everybody else, right? I sat in an ayahuasca ceremony many years ago, and it was all about healing my ancestral line, right? And I also got to this thought process that the same beliefs that my mother has and my father has, like, live in me, and they keep kind of stretching back. Like I can trace one of my family stories, and it is, I'm alone. And there's another one. Like, I'm always alone. That was a family story. And I said it to my mom, and like 2 weeks later, she said it to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think I need to call my aunties and like see if they have that too. And then I was like, well, does grandma have that? And it was a family story. And at that point, when as I was sitting in this ayahuasca ceremony, it had occurred to me, I was like, oh, I don't actually have to carry that story. Like, someone in my family lineage had the story, and they were probably very alone, right? And then passed the language down, passed the genetic imprint of that belief down. And so, gosh, I wish I could remember, like, there were so many constellations that I did in one moment. Like, there was like I would do it every week for months. So that's a lot. It's hard for me to actually like tease out the like a one experience, because it was so profound in that time in my life. And the reason why I went there was because I was hitting traumas that were pre-verbal. Like, I was hitting things that I couldn't speak about because they were so young. And so when you're when you're connecting to, like, we are our ancestors through not only our genetic DNA and the imprinting and all of that, because genetics are amazingly fascinating, as well as the emotional traumas that get passed through storytelling or through the language that we use. Like, constellations can help you find empathy and find understanding through the embodiment of the practice or the people involved. Does this make sense?
Beautiful.
I think I was all over the board there.
we love you, Trish. All right, I'm going to read a few comments and then go back to our wonderful guests. Susan Bloomquist writes, it is funny how sometimes an ancestor is strong in a child, even looking just like them. Bonnie of Bonnie and Roger fame writes, over the recent years, I've come to realize it's not my job to help my family grow spiritually to match my level, and that it's okay for me to pursue my growth no matter how they perceive it. That is a big lesson for a lot of us. That's why I brought that up. Thank you. Eleanor Joy says, right on, Bonnie. When we do our own healing, then it opens the pathway for others to follow suit. The choice is always theirs. This is a strong comment, very vulnerable, from George. He writes, I learned that on all my matrial line, that all the women from my mother's mother back several generations, all these women died young and angry, talking 40s and sometimes even 30s. Angry due to the extreme sexism of the times, keeping them chained to the kitchen stove and or the bedposts. Ooh, boom. So that would be a good example for some family constellation work. On a lighter note, Therese writes, song, I'm my own grandpa, a wonderful, fun song from a long time ago. Of course, I figured out that the words to make the song into I'm my own grandma, lots of fun. And yeah, how we just keep carrying on these patterns. Reverend Jeffrey writes, it is so great that we now have the concept of the field. This is a new and not yet understood by the majority of folks, yet how grateful we can be that we understand the wisdom of being connected to this unified field that we're all a part of. And then finally, Mark Janislavsky writes, I mean this, thank goodness and God, thank Goddess and God, that I've developed my consciousness enough to become part of this global Peace Tribe family. I don't know how empathetic people who haven't really opened the door to active spiritual seeking can get through this complex, troubling, and very marvelous life. Like a soul R system, S-O-U-L, then AR system, we are a self-assembled family constellation. And beloved Deborah Juliet writes, yes, Carolyn, I've experienced the very same. The twin Ray, who she works with, offer an awesome healing system that we can learn, or we can get a healing session, and it's working with the divine Christic energy system. It works on all of our 144,000 ancestors while healing us and our karma at the same time during each session. And we're going to be interviewing actually on the Awakening World on May 27th. That's 2 weeks from this Saturday, or last Saturday, 2 weeks from last Saturday, 1 week from this Saturday. We're going to be interviewing people who do the KES healing, twin ray style. All right, so Carolyn and dear Iara, this is giving you a chance to reflect some of the comments coming in. Where'd you like to go next? What comes up for you that you'd like to share or respond to?
Do you want to go first, Iara? Or
I can go first now. I've been going first a lot. Go ahead, Caroline. Thank you.
yeah, so for me, I very much feel like my purpose is to help bring peace between the feminine and the masculine. And there's so much we can do with constellations, and especially around, so in everything that I've learned and around the relationships that I've struggled in relationships quite a bit, I would say, with myself, and then also intimate relationships. A lot comes down to, early attachment. And that's where the constellations are so helpful, because in the constellation world, we basically see that, or our philosophy is that how we experience our first loves or our first intimacies is how we create life, basically. And so when we can go back and heal those really early attachment wounds, pretty much everything in life changes for us. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. And yeah, Iara, I'll let you talk real quick. I'm gonna say goodbye to my daughter who's going on a 2-week trip. I didn't know she was gonna come by today or right now, but.
Thank you, Caroline. I just want to make a comment because I saw a lot of comments, Scott, saying, well, I like, and Trish mentioned that as well. It's like, well, I'll keep going on my growing, my expansion of consciousness, even if my family is not supporting me on that because I cannot change their mind, right? And this is so true. Okay, we cannot change their mind. We cannot say, okay, you gotta believe this. You gotta do this. You cannot do that. But I think it's very important to find a space in your heart to not really criticize them too much, or just say, Omashar even mentions like, well, I'm isolating myself because I cannot have like a conscious conversation with my family. Because of that, I'm isolating myself. Okay, this can happen. Probably it's not such a good feeling. But what can we do? Like, can we do something on the soul level for that gap, right? Because you're here, you're a super conscious person, you're expanding, and the family members that you love so much, sometimes your father, your mother, your brothers and sisters are here. So there is a huge gap between you both. And you may ask, how can I do to like reduce this gap? I want to get close to them. They're my family members. I love them. I want to keep having contact with them. And I'll say there is some things that we can do, some systemic exercise that we can do on the soul level for that. And what I suggest, you can imagine that person in front of you, can be your mother, your father, or maybe it's your brother or sister that you're having this big gap that you cannot have a conversation with them. But on the soul level, you can connect, you can close your eyes and imagine that person in front of you and have a conversation with that person on the soul level. First saying, like, let's say if you are here the younger brother and you're actually having this issue with your brother, your older brother or your older sister, you can close your eyes, imagine that older brother or older sister in front of me and say, brother or sister, mention the name and say, I see you. First, recognize that you see them. I see you, you're my brother, my sister. I see you as a family member. I bring it to my heart. You're part of my system. You're part of my family. But externalize to them. But I have this expanse of conscious, and I'm learning new things. I know that maybe you're not 100% open for that. But I want to tell you that I love you. I still love you, I respect you. You're still my brother, you're still my sister. You can have that dialogue in the soul level. Imagine that person in front of you. And a lot of times when you do that and you're doing the subconscious level, the soul level, that person can get affected. And you're not influencing the free will of that person at all. Right? The person still has free will to change or not change, but you're having that communication, the soul level with this person. So for those of you that are feeling this big gap between a family member, because you're so more like advanced in a way, you have more knowledge and they are still close, something that I recommend to do, because by doing that, you may reduce that gap. And you may not feel so alone or so disconnected from that family member. That's what I want to share for now.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're going to bring in some reinforcements. Of course, Trish and I are coaches, but the great Paul Sterling is in the house. And Paul, I'm just curious, you've been here for the whole show. What are some of the thoughts that come up for you? I'm trying to find a way to bring you on. Whoops, wrong person. Hi, Deborah. Trying to find Paul. I had him in my sights. There you are. Thank you. Paul, what comes up for you?
Well, I am a relationship coach, but I'm also a relationship crash dummy. I have been through so many different challenges, and I'm looking at, when do you choose this over something else? And I had a brother that committed suicide. And so mostly I participated in this one, Scott, just listening, go, how do I apply it in my life? Because it's been a bumpy road, and they say you teach what you need to learn. So I've studied relationships a lot. I haven't done a lot of constellation work. It's very seductive to me. I mean, it's like, geez, I've had some things that have stuck with me for a long time. And I've been curious about this. So how do you decide it's this lifetime or it's some other constellation or some other history that's coming up? So I guess that's my question.
Yeah. And And it is a good question. Carolyn, what are your thoughts about when you kind of determine, is it past life or just archetypal? You know, it kind of, when we are imagining a past life experience, past life memory, to what degree do you take the approach it is historically past life, or it's more of an archetypal way of seeing that dynamic inside your consciousness?
Well, the beautiful thing with constellations work for anything, right? You could have money issues, you could have business issues, you could have health issues, you could have, it's not just about family. You can actually constellate anything that you want to know, anything about that you want to clear anything with. So when I start out with people, you know, usually people come because they do have some kind of an issue, right? And instead of focusing on the issue, I really just ask them what the outcome is that they want. And based on that, we select what needs to be, which fields or which things need to be represented in the constellation. And then the field actually will, based on, you know, we know what we have the intention of what we want the outcome to be. And based on that, the field, the constellation will just go in the directions. Like we don't necessarily put like anything in terms like, oh, this, you know, we want to do a past life constellation or a present life. We're doing a constellation to help create this particular outcome, and then whatever is needed just shows up. And part of the art of facilitating is learning to be so tuned into the field that you can feel what wants to come in and what's needed as pieces, basically as puzzle pieces. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, what it comes up for me is just, you must be very intuitive to do this work.
Well, you probably don't start out, you know, like you get more and more intuitive. It helps. And I do train people, and it helps when you are a little intuitive, but every human being is intuitive. Some of us have used it more and some of us just haven't. It's like a muscle, you know, and people like Iara and I, we do this on a daily basis for years and years and years. We're going to be a little bit more intuitive than somebody, you know, who works on a computer all day. But it's a skill. It's one of the senses, or one of the skills that we're all born with.
Right. Iara, welcome back. You know what happened? Just as I was about to bring Paul Sterling on, Jasmine Bear jumped into my lap and put her head on my keyboard, which caused everything to go wonky. So I apologize for that, but welcome back. All right, so let's get into how do people work with each of you. And of course, I'm going to bring up your websites and such, but we'll start with you, Iara. If somebody wants to work with you, what does that look like? What are the steps that they take? What happens?
Okay, Scott. So the first thing, we have a preliminary meeting. Usually it's like a 10 minutes phone meeting, just to do an assessment, what the person wants to work with, to see if it's a good match. Is family constellation is the best thing for the person? Because maybe it's not. Family constellation is not always like the solution that the person has been looking for. So I have this preliminary call and this 15 minutes discovery session. There is no charge for the client, and you can do that through the website, the Life Change Breakthroughs. And after that, said, okay, you really want the constellation, we'll schedule a session. And the beauty about family constellation, especially the one-on-one sessions, is because we can do in person or we can do online, right? Because there is no limitations about accessing the morphogenetic field. And we work with those figurines that represents the family members. And as Carolyn said, she works with some papers, right? I work with the figurines, and the way it works, I'll enter the morphogenetic field of each family member of the person to access the information that is needed over there, and to find what's going on in the client's life that is in the family lineage that is causing the client to have the issue that they brought for the situation. And family constellation is, I think, I lost what Caroline said, but the beauty also it is you can use for everything. I'm originally from Brazil, and I'm originally an attorney at law in Brazil. But when during my time, I didn't work with family law, I was with business and tax law. So, but in Brazil, they already use family constellation on a small claims court in Brazil. For you to have an idea, in Mexico, they already have these schools that is 100% based on the principles of family constellation. That's how powerful it is. It's used for business. For instance, somebody has a business and something got stuck in a business and they cannot find what's going on. Something is stuck in a marketing team, for instance. We can go and figure out through a family constellation, see what's going on the field, because family constellation is originally like for family only, but of course we have other systems, right? We have a community, the Sedona community is a system. The Maui community in Hawaii is another system. The business is another system. People that work at that business has the community as well. And can be work for business, relationships, physical pain, emotional pain. It's like so many things for so many things. And usually the beauty of also about family constellation is usually when you work on that situation one time. You don't need more than one time to work on that situation. You may have something else. You may bring another situation, but usually we don't work on the same situation twice because it can be seen what's going on during the session. Then healing can cause like one thing that I think is super important as well is like I'm a facilitator, I'm not healing you. Carolyn is as a facilitator is not healing you. The healing happens within you by seeing what's going on that system that caused the healing to happen within you. You are healing yourself. We're just facilitating the healing that needs to happen or something that needs to be seen that you cannot see.
Thank you, Iara. Well, that's a beautiful thing. And to learn more about Iara and her wonderful work, and if you want to awaken to your extraordinary life, go to her website. It's lifechangebreakthroughs.com. lifechangebreakthroughs.com, where you can learn more about her. And there's a lot of really cool stuff that she's doing. She's go to Maui. You can either go to Sedona to work with her in person or go to Maui. Those are two pretty good places to go to work with this wonderful woman. And she really does do a lot. She works with individuals, business owners, women's empowerment. And I see some people that I know that actually have worked with you before. And she is offering a free life blueprint. It's called How to Create Your Extraordinary Life. Just click there, and that's how you can get her ebook. And definitely make sure you give your name, just like I'm demonstrating right here, your email address, and always sign up for our friends here. And that's a great way to stay connected to what, in this case, Iara is doing. So please do join her website. And we're not done with you yet, but I figured we'd go ahead and do the introductions of websites. And so, Carolyn, same question. How do people work with you? And what's that look like?
Generally, I really focus on couples work. So I have a 6 months container that's called the Blissful Marriage Method that combines family constellations with something that's called bonding-based lovemaking. Can talk about that a little bit. So I do sometimes still have time to do one-on-one sessions. I do have apprentices that can do one-on-one sessions if somebody just wants to have a one-on-one session. But my passion is really helping couples that feel like they have a relationship that's maybe an 8 or 7, 8, 9, and they really want it to be a 10, to help them clear anything that's in the way of them having the 10 and also give them tools so that they can sustain it. And that's a little bit longer process than just one session.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's good to know. And to learn more about what Carolyn does, I'm going to go to a couple places. First, her website. And her website is her name, Carolyn. Mind you, there's no E at the end. It's Carolyn. So Carolin, Hauser, Hauser.com. So now tell us about this free training, 5 simple steps to have the most amazing love story ever. I'm going to sign up for that. And tell me a little bit about what I'm going to be receiving.
You're going to be receiving a training that talks about the 5 steps that we take our clients through, which some of it has to do with letting go of the past through the constellation process. Some of it has to do with really we look at relationships at very different than normal relationship coaches or therapists, which I touched upon, the levels of the energy levels. So part of learning how to be a blissful lover really has to do with learning tools for yourself on how you can uplift your own energy. And embodiment-based lovemaking is a practice that couples can use to really not only keep themselves in a high vibrational state of being, but also become very emotionally stable and let go of a lot of trauma, let go of a lot of communication problems, let go of a lot of health struggles and things that drain them. So that's what you're going to be learning. What that specifically is, you'll be learning in that training.
Very beautiful. You can also find Carolyn on Facebook. And it's simple, just go to facebook.com and put in her name, Carolyn Hauser. And again, I see that you've got all about, really working with power couples. So what's an example you can give? And I love that you've got, I didn't know Martha Stewart's in her 80s. Those are all pictures taken of her in her 80s.
Yeah, this is a little bit of a controversial post because there's this whole new movement around women needing to look like this when they're in their 80s. And I was saying that when you have natural tools, when you work with your vibration, you don't need to have plastic surgeries to still, look age appropriate, but, look good in your 60s, 70s, and 80s. So, yeah.
Okay, well, definitely. What's an example of a couple that you've worked with? What's a breakthrough story you can share?
A typical story would be a couple that's been together for a while and they really do love each other and they have a really good life. And at the same time, they have kind of given up on being physically intimate. So oftentimes when I talk to couples, they either still have like super passion, but a lot of drama, or they don't have so much passion anymore. They have a really stable companionship, but the sexuality part has gone out the window. And I believe that it's really possible to have it all in terms. It's really interesting to me how people that will not settle for anything, that will not settle in any other areas in life, when it comes to relationship, there's like this pervasive belief that we can have the friendship, but not the sex, or the sex, but not the friendship. And that is not so. And a woman named Marnia Robinson actually wrote a book a while ago. It's called Cupid's Poison Arrow, that really changed my life when I found it 7 years ago. That basically opened my eyes to that we have 2 programs for lovemaking. These programs have to do with our subconscious programming, but also with our neurochemistry. And our neurochemistry has to do with how much we stay in love, how much passion we have, how well we are connected, and how stable we are as human beings. And so I'm very much passionate about helping couples bring the honeymoon feelings back or keep them. If they're in the earlier stages of relationship, help them to keep those lovey-dovey feelings and really strong connected union. And for couples where the honeymoon feelings have faded and they're more in a roommate zone, to bring them back so that they can really truly have it all.
Because I was just on your Facebook page, and there you are with your beloved.
Yes.
Had the opportunity to meet him. And that is a beautiful photograph of the two of you. How long have you two been together?
A little over 1.5 years now.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, while we are doing promotion and letting people know how to get, let's talk about Trish. Trish, who's been traveling all over. You've been teaching all over the United States. I can't keep up with you. You've been all over the place, Oregon and Florida and North Carolina and the Bay Area, teaching and doing all sorts of wonderful things.
Wait, I just added more things to my schedule.
My gosh, where else are you going to be going?
Well, I'm probably going to be teaching in New York in July, back down to Miami. I've met with a naked chef and she is amazing. And we're going to probably pull some sort of really sensual breath workshop together.
Wow.
And if you want to follow me or see where I'm going and what I'm up to, follow me on Instagram. Like, that's a good place to find what I'm doing, how I'm doing it, why I'm doing it. Once I finish school in just a few days, finals are this week. This is going to be a lot more active. So this is a really good place to see some of the things that I'm up to.
I love all these different images of you, Trish. You definitely have many different personalities that are showing up in these photos and these posters and these images, that's for sure. And what's it mean to be a trauma-informed coach? Because I think that's one of your specialties, and I do want people to understand that.
Yeah. Well, not only have I been trained in different modalities that include trauma work, which is being sensitive to the languaging, moving slow nervous system regulation tools, recognizing that stimulating someone's trauma can send them backwards, and that to be not only to not just be slow and move with intention, but also how to get out of the trigger and trauma states and like how to come back from that. So there's lots of different things, like the counseling abusers class that I took and the mental health first aid things that I've taken, and also the Gestalt work. And, I'm sure there's other things that I can't quite, I'm not sure why I like consume all these classes, but like there's other things in my past curriculum that give me the opportunity to hold people in the depths of like a psychological breakdown.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's beautiful work that you do. And I'm going to bring our two guests back on. And I'm also going to bring up the great Paul Sterling. And here's a question that kind of came in, and we addressed it a little bit, but Iara asks, I'm wondering if you can speak more about the applications of family constellations for trauma, especially within communities. And we touched on that a little bit, but let's face it, we all have trauma in our family constellations. So I'm curious what any of you would like to add about managing and working with trauma within the family structure, within family constellation work. And any of you can just jump in.
It's interesting about family constellation works really well to work with trauma. My experience with trauma, usually I do the one-on-one family constellations, but my experience with trauma, I noticed that, in my opinion, is better to do in a group setting with with people that are already experienced, like doing family constellation with trauma, because it's different. Because as Trish told, you need to be careful with trauma because you don't want to trigger that too much, especially if the person has the PTSD. So there's different levels of traumas, and family constellation works really well. But I thought it need to be the facilitator should be like extra careful when working with trauma because of those triggers. And another thing also, if the person has a trauma and is under depression as well, both facilitator and the person should be like extra careful. But it works really well, and I prefer to work with trauma in a group settings. I believe it works better, even though I do work with trauma on the one-on-one family constellations as well. And we need to see in which level the person is. If that trauma is an old trauma of something recent, is something that caused like very powerful effects on the person to bring back, because family constellation can bring that trauma back very strongly in the body and your body sensations. So it's delicate, but very effective. Very effective. So I recommend.
Beautiful, thank you. Carolyn.
And in my opinion, a lot of people that have trauma have a lot of fear around healing the trauma because they don't know what they're going to expect. They have a lot of fears around, like, am I going to be out of commission for days after this? Is this going to pull me back into a depression? And having experienced many modalities and come back to the constellation so many times, in my experience, constellations is one of the gentlest way of releasing trauma. I've had it only, out of like thousands of people, I've had it maybe once or twice that somebody really got triggered from the constellation. yes, there is emotional release, and yes, it can be intense, but generally they're not re-triggering or and they also, the constellations help you release it. It's not necessary oftentimes to like relive the whole trauma. It's more about your system energetically letting it go. And so I have found that it's one of the gentlest ways of releasing trauma. And yes, obviously, there is differences in facilitators and differences in levels of comfort with, being able to hold that space. So somebody who's newer to constellations, for them, I would maybe not recommend to go to try to do work with really deep traumas, but the more experience you get as a facilitator, and the more also you represent. So part of becoming a facilitator is representing. The way I learned was to just stepping into the field and learning and learning and learning. And part of how the energy gets shifted in the family system is not by you as the client doing a lot of the work yourself. You're kind of like watching, and the people that are representing for you, they're doing most of the emotional experiencing and learning. And when I do constellations, and this is not necessarily how it works for everybody, but in my case, I do experience the trauma, and my body transmutes it for people so that they get a homeopathic dose in a sense, right? And so I have found that it's when you know what you're doing as a facilitator, it's one of the gentlest way of dealing with trauma and releasing it really quickly. And so in a way where people don't have to take time out, where they don't, get triggered to fall back into a depression, all those things.
Thank you. Thank you for the service that you both do. There's, I think, one last question here, and it's a good one from Susan, asking, what about traumas in old feuds, like between different families, not necessarily ones that are related to each other by blood, but can you do family constellation work to help kind of more in communities or feuding families?
Yep. You could do constellations on anything. Anything you want to. Constellations really has two aspects to it. It's a way of making things visible. So it could be a reading tool. Some people use it more as like psychic reading tool or intuitive reading tool. That's one way. And then the second part is really the deep shifting, energy shifting, and trauma healing. And so what's beautiful about the constellation work is there is no official certification or restrictions on it. People, you can just go home, get some of these fields and start playing, start putting things on the floor, put yourself and your partner, put yourself and your cat and start stepping into it and start feeling it and just learn from the field.
Beautiful. Iara, anything you want to add?
I unmute myself. I want to add, if you ever have the opportunity to do a family constellation in your lifetime, do it. It's worth it. It's worth it. I believe everybody should have once, at least one time in a lifetime. Is a precious work, and I'm so grateful for Bert Hellinger that brought this to us, And if you think about the ancient people from tribes, North America, the Zulus from Africa, a lot of these people, the tribal people, already use some of the concepts of family constellations. So I see as a more and more tool that is remembering, is part of being a human. So if you have the opportunity, please do it. It's precious. I'm not telling this just because I'm a family constellation facilitator. I swear, and saying deep in my heart, because it changed my life in so many ways for the better. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and in many instances, it solves in one sessions what 10 years of therapy can't get to. So it's very common that, I'll do a session for people and they're like, oh my God, I've been struggling with this for like my entire life. Where has this been?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. Paul Sterling, we're going to you. I notice you've got a thought or a comment.
Well, I kind of wanted to, at the end of this, normally I have plenty of things to say. Tonight I'm pretty quiet and just in awe of our speakers. And Scott, I wanted to say something about you. I love that you are sort of like the buffet of healing modalities that you bring to us every week the best of the best for us to learn from and grow from. And I just appreciate who you are as a human being and what you've created here with the Global Peace Tribe and the caliber of people, some of the best healers in the world that you bring together, that we get to come and sample and enjoy and learn from. So that I just wanted to appreciate you as a human being and what you bring in the weekly effort.
Well, thank you,
to
Paul.
making a difference.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you. I wasn't expecting that, but thank you. I'll receive the compliment. And yeah, it's inspiring for me because I've kind of a double life, by day when I'm doing my sessions, I'm working with people that are going through really hard stuff. And then on the Global Peace Tribe shows, I get to be inspired by all the wonderful guests that we have that are, always inspiring and changing the world in wonderful ways. So it keeps me remembering that, yes, life is hard. Relationships can be difficult, but we are part of an awakening world, and it's very beautiful. Trish, I'm going to bring you on for any final thoughts or comments you want to share, and then, of course, we'll go to Omashar.
Oh, I just want to say how sweet that was, Paul. I wish I could remember exactly what it was, a buffet of spiritual healers or something. I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Good.
What part of the buffet are you, Trish?
I don't think we should get into this conversation.
I'm blushing now. This has gotten.
I love you. And I love you, Scott. And to Iara and Carolyn, Paul and Scott. You know what? It takes a village to keep showing up and doing our work. You too, Scott. Come here.
Okay.
Obrigado.
Yeah, it takes commitment and commitment to your own healing and your own transformation and your own personal growth work and being in the darkness and the shadow and discomfort. So thank you all for choosing to love.
Well, likewise,
Oh, and you too, Omashar, of course.
Thank you.
Hey, before we go to Omashar, I want to acknowledge another wonderful opportunity. A few weeks ago, we had a show, Trish, remember, you and Omashar hosted it, actually, all about epigenetics. And Krista Morel Love is offering a free epigenetic experience. It's this Saturday. It's 9 o'clock Pacific time, 12 noon Eastern. It's free. And you can really drop into a deeper understanding about epigenetics. And I really believe strongly in Krista Morel. She's great. And so I want to just encourage everybody to attend. I'll put the link in the chat box where people can sign up for this. It's a great, great opportunity. It's free this Saturday. So I definitely want to encourage everybody to do that. All right, Mr. Omashar, you are up next.
That would be it. I'm it.
You're it.
What a rich, beautiful show with such eloquent, educated, intelligent people. Holy smoke. I am full at this buffet. And it really is a buffet because you don't have to accept everything, but you can listen to everything, you can see everything. And so I'm really grateful for this buffet because it's really helped me grow as a human being. And in light of that, here's a song, and it's called It's in Every One of Us. It's not mine, but it's, for some reason, Spirit tapped me on the shoulder and said, you're going to sing this tonight. And so I learned it today. I haven't sung it for years. Let's see what happens, shall we? It's always funny to see what happens. Oh, and Ian, you're going to have to waltz with Eleanor. So Eleanor, because this doesn't have a beat to it except the beat in your heart.
See, I just learned it. Okay. It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all know everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us by and by. It's in every one of us. I've just remembered, it's like I've been sleeping for years. I'm not awake as I can be, but my seeing is better. I can see through the tears. I've been realizing that I've bought this ticket and I'm watching only half of the show. There is scenery and lights and a cast of thousands who will know. Know, and it's good, and it's so. It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all know everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us by and by. It's in every one of us. I've just remembered, it's like I've been sleeping for years. I'm not awake as I can be, but my seeing is better. I can see through the tears. I've been realizing that I bought this ticket and I'm watching only half of the show. There is scenery and lights and a cast of thousands who will know what I know, and it's good, and it's so. It's in every one of us to be wise. Find your heart, open up both your eyes. We can all know everything without ever knowing why. It's in every one of us by and by and by and by.
Oh, love that song. It's
Yeah,
all
me too.
twinkle, twinkle time for Omashar.
Thanks for putting up with the glitches, but sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
It looked like you ran out of breath there for a moment.
I did, but that's because I'm living in.
You got to breathe.
I know it is. It's especially as I'm at about 6,000 feet in Colorado, and I've noticed I have to actually breathe. I've lived the last decade plus at sea level, and if I do not consciously breathe, I just run out of breath and don't even realize it's getting myself consciously re-educated. So anyway, thank you.
Well, thank you for that wonderful song. And to get more Omashar music, definitely go to omashar.com, his website, or come to the Awakening World. Come to all of our shows. And on Saturday night, we've got a really fun show. It's another collaboration with Tangela. And, you know, Carolyn and Iara both came to us through Tangela. So we are grateful for her. And we're going to have joining us will be Iara's husband, beloved, Stephen Von Lynn will be playing music on Saturday night. And then we have all these wonderful guests. And look at the topic, how to embody your divine superpowers. It's going to be a really, really fun show. So make sure you join us on Saturday night. And then this Sunday, you know, we're kicking off 99 Days for Unity. It's a big program. We've got a lot going on with it. We're going to talk about that. We've got some of the leaders of it and two really powerful guests. And of course, as always, Omashar music. So definitely join us on the Sacred Sunday show. And I'm going to bring Trish up one last time. So there we go. Another Wednesday night, another wonderful, wonderful show. Thank you, everybody, for being with us. And I see a lot of wonderful comments coming in. People are happy. So we'll see you. Have a wonderful week, everybody. We'll look forward to seeing you on Saturday night. Take care.